Hello, and welcome back to the Legacy Shift podcast. There's a lot of language out there telling mothers to choose calm. And if that phrase makes you kind of tense up, you're not imagining it. Because calm isn't something you decide in the moment, it's something that your nervous system either has access to or it doesn't. So, if you've ever thought, why couldn't I just stay calm in that moment? This episode is for releasing that question entirely. We're going to talk about what actually makes calm possible and why pressure to access it often takes it farther away. So, let's dive into today's episode. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a number of different things. But the main key point that I want you to understand is that if calm isn't available, no amount of intention, values, or awareness can override that. So let's first begin with that quiet pressure to always choose calm. A lot of times mothers hear, choose calm in that moment. You can choose calm. Why aren't you choosing calm? Or parent from being content or parent from being happy. This is all coming from a lot of parenting content on Instagram, on social media. We hear this from therapists, we hear this from books, we hear it all over social media, like I said. And sometimes we even hear it from our inner voice. Why can't I just choose calm? Now, it may sound supportive to say, well, choose calm in that moment. Your child is having a big feeling, you're having big feelings, just choose calm. But that's actually not supportive. It actually lands as pressure, which increases our nervous system as mothers. So what we're saying internally is that if calm is a choice, then I failed in that moment. And us as mothers, I never want anyone to feel like they've failed at a moment because they're trying their best and trying to change patterns and cycles and showing up consistently and being a conscious parent. If it sounds supportive and lands as pressure, you're not making that up. That's an actual valid response to feeling and hearing that word, choose calm, and feeling like a failure when that doesn't come naturally to you. So there's often a subtle shame underneath that phrase, right? In addition to not being calm in that moment, then afterwards, this happens to me so many times when I don't choose calm in a moment and maybe I react a little bit quicker than I wanted to. There's that shame afterwards of, oh my goodness, I really wanted to show up as a better mom and I didn't, and I failed, and I'm so ashamed that I didn't because I know that my kids need better and deserve better, and it's just not being that person right now. It's disappointment in myself, and I know that a lot of moms can relate to that because you're here listening to this podcast episode. There's that subtle shame. It's not loud. It's just very subtle. Over time, if you don't choose calm or if you're reacting and you continuously feel shame after those reactions, it's quiet self-disappointment. And that's hard because it's not something that we voice a lot of as moms, right? Like, it's very hard to talk to somebody about why you're feeling a certain way after you raise your voice, or maybe you don't even talk to somebody about the fact that you reacted to something that your child did because there's already that shame there and you don't want other people to judge you. So this is a no judgment zone. I'm here to tell you that as parents, as mothers, our nervous system does get irregulated, and when we hear that term, oh, just choose calm, it does the opposite of what we intend for it to do. So we see a lot of the notions maybe of like when husbands say, oh, just calm down, and why that doesn't work. So it's the similar circumstance here in parenting is when you say to yourself, or when other parenting gurus say, just choose calm, and you feel that subtle shift of that tightness in your chest and just, well, I'm trying to choose calm, but it's sometimes it's not accessed or readily available. So this often creates an invisible performance loop. You monitor yourself for calm, and then you judge yourself when you don't find it. When calm is framed as a choice, it actually leads to stress and self-blame, which is what we don't need as moms. We don't need that extra stress and self-blame. We have enough of that already from a plethora of other areas. So calm framed as a choice quietly turns stress into self-blame. let's dive into what actually happens in our body when it's under stress, because this is another topic that I love speaking about just because I notice it quite regularly in myself and I notice it in other parents, and I like to dive into this with you. Stress is not a mindset. It's actually a physiological state. So what happens when the nervous system detects threat? Speed increases. Your focus is narrowed. You have less access to language, patience, and flexibility. So when something says, hey, just choose calm, well, that's not there because our stress is now increased in our body. And we can have the utmost intention to remain in a regulated state and to remain in that calm state when our child is having a very serious or a very big emotional outbreak. But the matter of the fact is that the body's job is to protect, and we can have the best intention, but the body's job is going to protect. What I mean by that is your body goes into self-protection. It's not going to protect the intention. It's going to protect the actual body and the physiological state that you're in. This is where we come to see the fight, flight, or freeze mode often as parents. And also, like I said, we have less access to language. Not just language, but we have less access to the tools that we've learned to regulate ourselves in those moments. When our body is increased in stress, those tools, we talked about this in the last episode, they disappear because there's less access to them when our brain is under stress or when our nervous system is under stress. So this is why the I know better narrative doesn't matter in these moments, because knowing lives in the thinking brain, but when we're stressed, it pulls us into our survival responses. So that flight, fright, or freeze mode that I just spoke about. And these can come up quite quickly. These can come up over a period of time. The I know better doesn't do anything in these moments. It's that we go into that immediate survival response when our body's under stress. And when you're under stress, the nervous system decides first, and then the conscious mind and intention comes after, if it comes at all. I'll give you an example. Last night or yesterday, my husband and I were having a bit of an argument. And in the argument in the morning, we were both in a heightened stress state. Our language and patience was very thin, and we started getting upset with one another. We were talking about one of our children, and I want to protect the event that happened. So I'm not going to share the actual event. I'll just share the emotions around it. We were talking about one of our children and what's going on with them. And we had different parenting styles that we wanted to integrate into solving or helping this child move through the challenge that they're going through. And so we were getting heated, and my tools left. In that moment, my body took over because I was getting very increased anger. I was very flustered. I was having an increased nervous system response, more stress to the response because I was just feeling like I wasn't being heard. And in turn, he was feeling the same. So our responses to one another were very much not ones of understanding, but ones of that increased nervous system. So what had happened is that later on in the day, actually quite much later after the kids had gone to bed, we actually were able to sit down again and have a regulated conversation. And this happened because our bodies weren't under stress in that moment. Our nervous systems were back to being regulated, and we were able to come from a place of intention, that conscious intention, rather than a stress response. We were able to have a regulated conversation, voice our opinions, and come up with a solution together so that we can benefit and help our child in that situation that they were going through the best that we could. Under stress, the nervous system responds first, and that's what happened yesterday morning. But later on, I was able to access and tap into that conscious intention. Calm in the morning was not present at all. It wasn't present at all because there was a bunch of other things that were happening at the same time as this conversation. Like I was getting the kids ready for school. One of them needed a diaper change. I was trying to get everybody dressed and ready to go. And then we were having this conversation. This physiological state was an increased stress response. So in these moments of I know better, I want you to be reassured that impact here still is blame doesn't increase the access to your nervous system. It will actually impact it in a negative way. So impact still matters. And if you do come out of that physiological state of that increased stress response, then we have that ability to repair. We're able to repair after events happen, and that's more important than what actually sometimes happens during the event. If you have an increased stress response to a child and you do something you're not proud of or that you know better and you want to choose a different response to that, then you can come back and you can repair that relationship by acknowledging and taking responsibility, but not taking the personal blame for your increased stress response in that moment. I just want you to know, as mothers, this is something that is constantly coming up for us, and you're not alone if you're feeling that increased stress response in certain moments. It's actually a physiological response in our body. Next, I want to talk about calm versus suppression. So this is where a lot of moms and parents can get stuck. A lot of mothers can appear calm, but they have a tight body, their breath is held, they have jaws that are clenched, their tone is controlled, but it's not settled. But they may appear outwardly as calm. This isn't regulation, this is actually suppression. So you're suppressing the emotion that's going through your body to try to appear calm. And again, as a mom myself, it's sometimes you want to appear calm and you're not, and inside you're maybe seething, or maybe you do have that increased stress response, but you really are trying to be calm in that moment. I want you to understand that that's not regulation, that is suppression. And not that it's good or bad to have that suppression. I'm just saying, let's take acknowledgement for what the feeling is inside. Control does not equal calm. So yes, you can have control in a moment, but it doesn't mean that you're actually truly calm inside. Control takes a lot of effort, and calm is available when it's not forced. There's a lot of cost of having a suppression of what you're feeling. Number one, it builds pressure, but it also eventually leads to overflow. So if you're consistently in that suppression and trying to outwardly show that you're calm, it can mount up, and then this is where, like, I would call, I blew up at the child, or I blew up at the situation, and I went from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. But it was actually like a stacking effect of all of the events that had happened, or all of the suppression that I experienced. And I know that I'm not alone in this, because a lot of moms feel the same. We notice that we're suppressing instead of actually being calm when we have louder reactions, or we feel an immense amount of guilt after a situation happened. Again, you're not alone in these. These are just acknowledgement of what's truly going on and that physiological response from having that increased stress space. If calm requires effort, it's probably control, not regulation. And I think that's the key here, is that if you are feeling calm, but you're feeling still tight and clenched, you're suppressing. You're not regular. But I guess the question is, like, why does calm disappear under loads and loads of stress? And why does that just be calm, or I know how to be calm in that moment? Why does that really irk us? Calm shows up on some days and not others. But my question is, well, why does that happen? Why are some days I'm totally cool as a cucumber, anything can happen, and I'm just like, yeah, no worries, I'm totally regulated. And then some days I'm just like snapping at everything, right? You can have the same parent, but different capacities. So I've realized that it very much depends on things that are going on around me. The amount of sleep I had, how I feel. Do I feel put together that day? Do I have a headache? I get headaches sometimes. Do I have a lot of emotional labor going on? Am I thinking about a plethora of different things? What's my mental load like that day? Do I have a lot of scheduling that needs to happen? Or do I have a lot of to-do lists that I haven't written down for the family? So a lot of these things can amount up into why some days I can access that calm very easily, and why some days that it's just not accessible. We have to take all of these into consideration when we find that the calm disappears under the increased load that we have. This isn't about discipline or practice, right? Calm doesn't improve by demanding that it's there. It's literally about the mental load and the things that we have going on. You can say, instead of why couldn't I stay calm, the reframe of that could be, is calm even accessible to me right now? If it's not accessible to you, you can acknowledge the fact that, hey, that wasn't accessible to me because I had XXXXX going on. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that you have a mental load that's overflowing, and that's why you reacted a certain way. A funny example of this, but a good example, is my kids' supplements in the morning. So one of my jobs in the morning is the kids' supplements. We kind of divide up a little bit of the morning. It used to be that I would do everything in the morning for all the kids, and then the mental load became very unbearable. So then we had a conversation, my husband and I had a conversation about taking some of the mental load. So now my husband's responsible for breakfast, but I do the supplements because it brings me a lot of joy. The funny story is that my one son this morning, he goes, "Well, Mommy, why do you always forget to give me the supplements?" And my husband goes, "Well, she sometimes has a lot going on in her mind in the morning." It's funny, but it's not at the same time, because there's a lot of things that go on in our mind, and this does contribute to our calmness later on. It's nice to see that that's being acknowledged, but also, yeah, there is a lot going on, and that does impact how we can access our nervous system and access our stress responses, and whether we go into a physiological state of stress or if we stay in a state of calm, or if we are trying to suppress or not suppress, right? So the big question is calm even available to me right now? If you name that capacity, it removes any moral layer. So it's not good, it's not bad, it's just either available or unavailable, right? And this helps with feeling no shame or no guilt after we lost access to that calmness. Understand that this is a capacity issue. It's not an effort issue. You can't keep putting a lot of effort in. It's about the capacity that you have going on in your current state. I've had this question a couple times and I want to address it. How can we build calm? How can we build calm without pressure? How do you access that calmness, right? How is it that we can learn that calmness to be able to access in those moments of increased nervous system states? So calm is trained outside moments of need. So if you're in a moment and you're feeling flustered and you're feeling agitated or whatever, that's not a moment that you can train calm. Your calm is trained outside of those moments. The body needs proof that calm is safe, not promises, right? You can do this in small, neutral moments where there's no urgency and no fixing needed, but that you're allowing your body to settle into a state of calm, and that any extra kind of mental loads are dissipated and you're just able to be calm in a moment. This is training calm into your nervous system. So, like I said, the small neutral moments. Can you do, if your kids are coming home from school and they drop all their backpacks, instead of reacting immediately, this is where we can train our calm, right? This is a neutral moment. They're coming in, they're excited to tell you about their day, and you're focused on their backpacks. Okay, hey guys, can you hang up your backpack and then we can have a really great chat about what happened at school today? That's a neutral moment, right? Opposed to hang up your backpacks now or you don't get a snack, right? So that's now obviously we're entering into a suppression mode of calmness, or we're accessing that increased nervous system response. So there's no urgency to clean up the backpacks. If you look at it, there's no urgency, right? There's no fixing it. But it's a moment in time that we can train that calm into our system. And this is something that is ongoing for practicing. Practice it when you're getting your kids in the car, practicing it as you're leaving the house, practice it as you're putting the kids to bed, or as you're having conversations or getting dinner ready. Can we practice it in these little moments, because this is where consistency will pay off. This is where the change will show up, and we'll notice it in the bigger events because we've been practicing it in the smaller, non-urgent events. Release the timeline, honestly. You're not going to work on being calm today and then expect calmness every single day going forward. It's going to be consistency over time, and understand that calm grows very quietly. So you'll notice it if you reflect back on the past 3 months and you've been working on it consistently. You'll notice that you're remaining more calm in those bigger moments. And that is how we train calmness, and how we can notice that our nervous system is now in a state of calmness, not suppression. I really want you to understand that I understand, right? I understand how hard it is to train calm. I understand that it's not easy. I understand the importance of it. And I'm here with you learning every single day. Every single day I'm trying to and doing my best to show up in those calm moments. But some days are more stressful than others. And some days I go into that physiological response of stress or of rushing around and things like that. It's a constant reminder to myself in those moments, we're not in a rush. We can take the time and we can relax in the nature of whatever the task is. If calm hasn't been available for you lately, nothing's gone wrong. It doesn't mean that you failed. It doesn't mean that you're backsliding. It doesn't mean that you don't care enough. It simply means that your nervous system was protecting under load. Understanding that it is not an excuse, but it's the beginning of learning that calmness and safety. And safety is what allows calm to return slowly over time. If what you heard today helped your body soften even just a little, you don't need to hold that alone. I host a quiet WhatsApp space called the Regulated Mom Room for mothers who are aware, care deeply, and are learning how to live what they already know without pressure and self-monitoring. There's no fixing, there's no homework, and no expectation to show up in a certain way. Just gentle support, shared language, and reminders when things feel tight. The link is in the show notes for whenever you need it. Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast, and I'll see you next week.